Morning, everybody. Is everyone happy where they're seated, or you're happy? Don't need to be warm together here, no. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Well, firstly, thanks to Foresight just for creating just this space for these moments. You know, they really are wonderful where we can come together and fellowship, I know, and be trained and equipped. So, yeah, thanks to Foresight for everything. They've been really warm and welcoming. And so what I'm going to do is start with just tell you a little bit about myself. And for those that don't know me, then I want to just talk about our why. In why do we gather with life groups, small group meetings, outside of a Sunday meeting, part of the body of Christ? What's our reason? If we don't have our why before us, it's going to be difficult to navigate certain seasons in leading life groups, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about practically some of the things that we have experienced in leading life groups over the years. And I'm going to talk a little into hospitality. I really think that is a very crucial gift that we need to see operating in our life groups, to see them grow and mature. And then talk a little bit about, we're from the Crossing Church, but we kind of work around 4 pillars and 4 things that we almost put through a grid every time in preaching, preparation, in anything we ever do. And that is word, spirit, community, and mission. And so we're always touching those 4 legs of a table. And we believe that's fundamental and crucial to bringing people through to maturity. And so, yeah, let me start with who I am. So my name is Katie. I'm married to Ian Dornan, who's sharing right now on leading and emceeing a meeting. No problem. Gathering some chairs back there. That's no problem. And so we have... I've got the mic. No, I'm kidding. So we have 3 little children, my joy and my delight. Nathan, a 12-year-old boy, Samuel, 10-year-old boy, and Caitlin, a 7-year-old little girl. And we have been at the Crossing Church for around 9 years under the leadership of Brad and Shariza Lane. And we're part of the team, eldership team there. And honestly, the time has flown. It's really been such an incredible time for us. And we just celebrate being in a community like that. So I'm also going to start my time here. We're already 10 past. What I'd like to do is maybe leave some time just at the end, and we can have a little bit of an interactive time. Maybe you can ask something around what I'm sharing that you feel you want to ask about, or a practical example that we can all just chat about. So let's do that. Yeah, I've got time in here. Okay. So, the why. The why, the reason, the vision for meeting as life groups outside of a Sunday, right? And yeah, for me, that's got to be the start. It's got to be the foundation. And when I got originally saved 20 plus years ago, within, honestly, I think the first week of getting saved, I was plugged into a life group. I was plugged into a Bible study, and I had a one-on-one discipleship with someone in our local community. So this church got it really right about connecting people in straight away. And I can say for 6 months, attending the discipline of a Sunday, a life group, a Bible study, and a one-on-one discipleship. Given I was a student, I do understand that there's a time factor around that. But honestly, there could not have been a more incredible foundation for me in my newfound faith. I was away from home. The Lord knew He had about 6 months to work on me in a big way before bringing me back to Joburg, because this was in Stellenbosch. And so I'm a real advocate about getting people connected. In a time on a Sunday, you've got a preach coming from the pulpit. It's in one direction, the message, and you've got however many people listening and filtering what's being said through their own life experiences, their own theologies. And you actually never get the feedback unless you sit down and ask someone what they heard. Banner came this morning, he shared a message, and I guarantee you that if I had to ask every single one of you what was shared by Banner, you'd all have picked up on something different and even taken a completely different view on what someone else, the person next door to what Banner was saying. I don't know if you've experienced that, but the more I ask questions and I listen, the more I realize there's such a gap between what's coming from the pulpit, what people are receiving, and how we are maturing people with that and helping them in their theology and their understanding. So that is I think why it is exceptionally important to have those moments. But in the preparation for this, I felt kind of two pictures. And one is we see in Galatians 4:19. And we've got Paul, and he's preaching to the church, writing a letter to the church in Galatia. And he says, "My dear children, for who I am again in the pains of childbirth, until Christ is formed in you." And Eugene Peterson says, "I feel like a mother in the pain of childbirth, waiting for Christ's life to become visible in your life." Listen to that. Waiting for Christ's life to become visible in your life. And just the heart of Paul to this church, as he sees himself as a father wanting to nurture his children, and so desperate and so passionate to see the church grow and mature into everything that Jesus has for them. And that is such a beautiful picture for me. If we could have that same earnest and that same wanting and expectation for Christ to be formed in every one of us, it's got to be at the forefront of our minds when we're leading people, right? And then a little bit more kind of personal and close to home, but we attended a family wedding last week, Thursday, and weddings are amazing moments. And I was sitting there, and it really struck me, sitting down in a beautiful, beautiful venue, most exquisite view, food being prepared in the background for the guests, tables being laid out, got dresses, rings, flowers being arranged. It's been months of planning, and it's been a small fortune that has been spent on this day, right? And I was struck there, and I was thinking how often we can get, and Vanna spoke about this in his message, just about distractions and things of the doing and getting busy with, and what is it all for? At the end of the day, we have a bridegroom that's standing and he's waiting for his bride with great anticipation, with great expectation. And really, us as leaders in any capacity, and we're going to be speaking specifically about Life Group here, it's to prepare the bride. And the bride's heart towards the bridegroom is the only thing that matters. Wedding dress, the view, the venue, the flowers, the ring, all of that is just serving to maybe add to the day or add to that moment, but really, what is in the heart of our people towards their bridegroom? Because one thing is for absolute certainty, and that is the love of the bridegroom for the bride is not under question. We've got a bridegroom, Jesus, who laid down his life, where the scripture says, for the joy set before him. And if you can almost see that in a picture right now, for the joy set before him of a bride coming towards him as a bridegroom. And our role to nurture, to lead, to teach our folk so that three things may happen in their lives, that they may grow in their love for Jesus, they grow in their faith towards Jesus, and grow in their hope in him. Those three things. If we're going to measure our effectiveness as life group leaders, it's to ask this question of each person that we have the privilege of leading, and that's, has this person grown in their love towards Jesus? Have they grown in their faith in him? And have they grown in their hope in him? Everything else actually doesn't matter. And really, it's everything that we say and that we do that causes love, faith, and hope to arise in their hearts towards God that is of eternal value and all that matters. So everything I'm talking about after that, how we effectively do that, all these tools absolutely only exist to help serve that purpose. So I think with that in mind, and if you have a moment where it becomes difficult, just envision the bridegroom. He's waiting for his bride. The bride is before you in the group. We are the bride. And may that encourage you and inspire you and give you what you need to finish strong in leading a life group. Life group growth in, let's say, in numbers, I think generally the pattern is your church, folk come into your church and then they come into a life group. You might have it where someone visits a life group, they feel more comfortable being invited to a small group and then they end up joining the church. But the natural flow is someone comes into your church and then you get them plugged into a life group, right? So the important question is what is our church message out to the world in terms of invitation? What are the various expressions to the world that our church is saying? It's saying, come, you're welcome, you belong. That's what we need to be saying from the outside of the church to the outside of the church, bringing them into the church and then into our life groups. So come, you are welcome, you belong, is a message that really must permeate through our churches, through our life groups, as a thread and a value throughout, right? And some practical things we have to make space for people. Firstly, in our hearts. You'll be amazed by how many people are very happy to meet on their Sundays in their group. And actually, newcomers, it kind of shifts things up a bit, shakes things up a bit, don't quite like the nature of the type of people coming into our closely knit environment. As leaders, we need to set the celebration of newcomers and believers, and believing and always keeping our eyes on the lost and those that are coming in, and celebrating that is of vital importance if you want to bring people in. Visitors invite visitors. I don't know if you've experienced that, but over the years, I've met so many people that have come to visit our church that I haven't even met the one that invited them. Have you ever experienced anything like that? It's almost like when we go to a restaurant and we enjoy the most incredible meal, or we go and experience something new. We're excited, right? We want to tell people about it. I can assure you, with visitors, it's the same. If they're a gatherer or a connector of any kind, if they've come into your church and they've had a great experience, their friends and their family and everybody knows about it. And honestly, look after your visitors, celebrate them, and you'll see that they will bring more people than folk that have been in your church for 20 years, that will sit there and they just don't bring people, right? So that's kind of culture of an invitation is something we need to massage in. And I think we can very easily, I've been in the corporate space and you can kind of assess whether we think someone is a church type of person or whether they'll fit in your church. And I want to say and encourage you, please don't do that. If there's an opportunity to invite anyone at any stage into your environment, whether you think they're going to like it, whether their personality suits it, even if their lifestyle aligns with their values of your church, that's not your job, right? It's not your job. Trust the Lord. When you bring them in, they're going to come under truth, come under the word, be in worship, be touched by the Spirit. That's what we've got to trust in. So I really want to encourage you, your insurance broker, when you sit down with a meeting with him, and I've got a testimony that our insurance broker from my previous company, I invited him weeks ago, had an opportunity to share about why I was leaving where I was. And part of it was saying I want more time and space for ministry and the things I think the Lord's called us to. Just spoke like that. And he's like, so it caused a little bit of a bridge, and started talking. And he said, yeah, I used to be in church and a few things. So I invited him, said, well, this is where we are. Come and join us. Weeks later, I'm sitting down in front of the church, worshiping, and I look back, and who's there? Andre, his name was, with his wife. So, yeah, at every moment and every opportunity, I said, don't overanalyze it. It's not your job. Your job is to invite, allow the Lord to do what he does. And in the encouragement, when you have folk in your church, and it seems to be a lot of visitors in a day, and most of the leaders know that, I mean, just be who you are and do what you've always done. People want the authentic experience of what a church is. There's a public word that's been released now. Oh gosh, should we release it? What should we do? It's a moment of teaching and growing and equipping people, and unhindered, continue to do what you always do. Maximize family-orientated moments. So baptisms, dedications, these moments we have in our community, always quite a few visitors. And so it's always an important time just to be mindful, up your welcoming game, up your welcoming team that's allocated on that day. And yeah, again, trust the Lord in those moments that they're being ministered to. And often they come because it's a family thing. They may not have any inclination towards church in that moment, but the Lord can do a work and has done a work in all of us, right? Then, very practically, what we do as a community is just the various levels of, say, welcoming, is we will welcome personally at the door and treat every person almost like they're a visitor. Smile, friendly, get your best smilers, most warm, welcoming people on those doors. Then we corporately will welcome people from the pulpit as part of the leading of the meeting. we will invite them to a space after the meeting in an area where they can enjoy some teas and coffee, something to eat, and a little bit a closer encounter. It started to connect with the folk on a more personal level. We have just a very simple little card that we have there at the welcome table or little seating, there's couches and things, and we get them to complete it, just name and surname and their details so that we can find out why they visited. We've got a few kind of tick boxes. Would you like to hear more about Foundations, which is our course around theology, basic theological course? Would you like to join a life group? Just various things that we know we can plug them into quickly if it's something that they want to do. Then we will have someone in the week go through those cards and make a phone call and say, thank you, it was so wonderful to have you, visit us on the weekend. And we also look at life groups at that time. We've had many people come in on a Sunday and they're at life group on a Wednesday. And that's what you want to do. Make them feel part of family from the first moments. Don't wait 2-3 weeks. We have an enemy that is not very happy that they've found some sense of belonging in a community, and I can promise you they'll have 1,000 excuses later. But once you're in community and you have friends, people asking, there's definitely a sense of connection. So even next step of getting the visitors into someone's home, one of your leaders' home, around a table for a meal, within 2-3 weeks, I think is a really, really good thing. And I think it's another way of just making sure that when folk come in, that they stay connected. You know, I'm just always reminded that we are created out of community for community. And it's literally in our DNA to be a part of family. You know, and as kids, I've got obviously 3 youngsters, and there's many parties that happen. And they've never moaned about being invited to a party. But they will cry tears if there's a party and they're not part of it. And please know, we don't change as adults, right? We want to be invited. We want to be included. And sometimes we might be shy in our way of engaging with people, but please know that it's the most loving thing you can do to invite someone, particularly into a community of believers where they're going to learn about Jesus. That's going to really change their lives, right? So you never have to apologize for asking. And then you leave the ball and allow them to respond, right? Then hospitality. So there's many scriptures encouraging us to practice hospitality, and even as an elder, you actually need to, it's a requirement to be able to have the gift of hospitality, right? And in my observation and experience working in different teams, being part of events in and out of churches or corporate spaces, I really believe that there's 3 areas in terms of hospitality that one can look at and focus on. And I say 3 because I've seen people operating in one of those 3 without the others. So some folk might have all 3. I know a person or 2 that are like that, some that are in 2, and some that maybe have 1. But the first thing is the environment, okay? And the environment refers to everything from parking to furniture, to flowers, to the space, to not having dogs around and licking people's legs, or things that might distract people or not make them feel comfortable, right? And the question really is, without words, what is your environment saying? Is it saying, I've thought of you, I've prepared for you, and I welcome you. You are welcome. So an environment does do that. And I think all of us can say when we've walked into an environment, whether you're observant or not, you've experienced that. Just a place that, wow, I just feel like it's not a person, it's an environment, but it's almost said you are welcome, right? And if this isn't your natural, you're not observant. You wouldn't even know if a dead body was lying next to you when you walked into the room. And I joke like that because my husband says that. He says, where's the dead body? Because I miss things. I don't, if I'm not looking for something, I'm not going to find it. Okay? So if you're not like that, look at your team and your life group and identify someone that you know has got a natural gift in that. Ask them and say, come, look at this, wherever you're meeting is, and you might even have to change your venue if it's not conducive to people, right? But how can we make this place a place of invitation, a place of welcoming, and get their input honestly, the people that flow in that gifting within 5 seconds will tell you, put the chair there, change that, move this, parking, make sure that there's parking. Because, I mean, some of the things is very as practical as it is. If it's a headache for people to park and know how to get, honestly, it's in the beginning, it's a hindrance. Remember, they haven't felt home, welcome. It's maybe their first time visiting. It's very important. And on that note, when you are inviting someone to a life group, do a pin drop, communicate way in advance, tell them what's happening, when it's happening. Organized people need to know that information, and they'll get frustrated if they don't know that information, and disorganized people won't care. So you're going to win either way, right? But all of those things that can facilitate bringing someone into your space. And what is life group really? It's an intentional space, some time and a location where we are bringing folk together because we want to see them mature. And all of that is again for this reason. And if you don't have someone in your group that you see that in, find a friend. They don't have to be born-again believers for them to operate in this gift of hospitality. And so maybe you've been into someone's home and you've just felt, this is just wonderful. This is really homely and warm and welcoming. Invite them in, say, okay, you're coming as a first-time visitor. What do you experience about this place? How can we make it welcoming? That's how we're doing it. Okay, relational. And that's, some people are hospitable in their relational ability to engage with people, okay? They may not, again, have any concern about their surroundings. They may not have any concern about the other area I'm going to speak into, but when you meet them, you feel warm and welcomed. There's this, and I think all of us have been around long enough to know who those people are, and who they are in our teams, who they are in our families, and that is definitely a gift, and it's a very necessary gift if you want to grow your life group, okay? And, you know, first impressions are obviously very, very important. They can't not be changed, but a lot of people sum up people in their first impression. And it's not a good thing because it's actually judgmental in a way, because you don't even know the person. You've already made some sort of summation of who they are. So let's not do that, but know that others might do that to you, right? So I must say, for me, that is a far more comfortable place for me than actually even speaking to you right now. I like the relational aspects, talking with people, and honestly, for me, it's as simple as asking questions and listening. Everybody wants to be heard. You're a new person that comes in to be asked your name, where you're from, you know, what brought you here? Do you know someone from the church, or how did you find out about us? And how did you, after the Sunday, you can say, how did you experience the worship? What did you think of the word? You know, you're learning and engaging something about them from the start, and they feel being interested, someone's interested in me. And I learned, well, there's an acronym for love. There's probably many, but listen, observe, value, or validate, and encourage. And this was actually, I listened to this as part of a parenting training, and I just think it's very helpful for 4 letters, just to listen, observe. You're picking up, you're hearing what people are saying, you're observing by their actions or how they're engaging with things. You're validating. So in a life group, someone is sharing something with you. I'm very easy to go into solve mode. Like, I've got this problem, or I'm feeling this way. I want to solve the problem. And I know the step before that, of the encouragement with the teaching and the training, is validating. And that is, I've heard you and I empathize with the way you're feeling. And even if you've never been through something like that before, people need to feel like, okay, you get me. Before you start finding a solution for their life or leading them even in the word, it's actually quite frustrating for people if they bring an issue and sometimes you go just straight to, well, what does the word say? And yes, they need that. Absolutely. Guiding people outside of the word is not something we do, right? But to go straight there without validating and showing and engaging and connecting it's not a great place to start ministry. You know, so listen, observe, validate, and encourage. And you can do that at every level. When you meet someone, you're listening, observing, not so much validation because they probably don't feel close enough to you to expect you to. But you can, you know, a lot of people that come in are looking for something. Often, you're listening, yeah, I've come here. I know people, the only time I see them in church is I know something's gone down in their life. They've gone through a relationship breakup, lost their job financially in dire need, and now they need God. So often when you ask them, how things going, there'll be a lot of things, and perhaps there is space then for the validation. And so offer that before going into how you're going to help them and encourage them in terms of get into a community, let's get around you, let's pray with you, let's get in the Word, and take them out of that season and through that season. Third area of hospitality, so we've spoken about the environment. Relational, which is definitely number one. We are relational human beings. We can't engage with people. You can have the most beautiful environment and great catering, but if you're not engaging with people, that's not where they're going to find any sense of belonging. But on the catering side, we see Jesus throughout Scripture around tables. There's much fellowship, much teaching that happens around a table, and eating, blessing. And there's definitely folk in those environments, or in a life group, for example. And it doesn't have to be a big thing or a big budget thing. But when you come into someone's home, the invite of, would you like something to drink, is honestly an absolute must in the hospitality space. Can I get you something to drink? In summer, cool drinks. Winter, hot, warm drinks. Enough water. Big, we call them urns. And enough, not people looking for cups in your kitchen because you only put out 4 and there's 8 people. The practical ththings. Had that laid out. Again, what is it saying? Been thinking about you, been planning towards this. You're so welcome. Is it saying that? Or, there's no more cups left? In the back of your mind, did they know I was coming? Did they prepare for it? Did they care I'm here? So, but with the catering, there are just some folk, and I know a particular friend of mine who her love language is literally serving people in the space of catering. So it's one of the wow attributes, if anyone knows the Gallup Strength Finders and all that. They want to wow people with what they put before them. They serve and they love people. They literally want to put the plate down and walk away and not necessarily have to talk to the person ever. So it's not a personal, relational thing, but they literally love people through what they serve them. And so small things, when I think about, that's not my natural bent. If I think of catering for more than my family, it's actually a stress. I heard about someone who baked 2 cakes this morning before 9 o'clock. I'm like, that's not me, okay? It's really not me. And so, you have those folk around where you can do certainly a certain amount yourself. Like I said, have enough cups, have enough plates, an urn big enough to have enough water, and it's hot when they arrive, so you don't have to wait for 15 minutes for it to boil. And those type of things, if they don't come naturally to you, get help. And have almost checklists for yourself. Put out cups, do those things. The things you don't want to worry about when the folk come. You want to be able to just engage with them, but that is telling them you're so welcome. And And know your people. If you've got a whole bunch of health fanatics, possibly fruit sticks would go down well. We always have tea and various teas and cakes, particularly now in winter, or cakes and stuff. And we don't really have the health fanatics in our group, but if you do, they would feel like you've noticed what I value, and by just putting this out, you have, you've seen me, and you've made an effort for me being here, right? In terms of the 4 pillars or the 4 legs of a table or a chair, that us saying that our community processes everything really through. It's really, really helpful that as life group leaders, we also look at those 4 things. Okay, life group is the community part, but in the life group, we need to be stirring people in the Word in terms of what God is saying. What is He saying about Himself? What is He saying about us? What is He saying about the world? What is He saying about the lost? What is He saying? We only know about God because of what He says in His Word. If we are going from any other framework or any other book or any other thoughts, we are going to find ourselves on a bit of a rocky path. So the Word has to be the foundation of what God is saying. The Spirit, what is God doing? Okay, He doesn't do anything but by His Spirit. He was at creation, salvation, redemption, glorification. There's nothing that He doesn't do without His Spirit. And so, our being able to lead a group can't happen effectively without His presence. And for them to grow and mature can't happen without His presence. Okay? can't worship God without his presence. The bride can't have love. She can't even see the bridegroom without his presence. And that revelation of who Jesus is by the ministry of the Holy Spirit, right? Community, who are we? So we get blessed personally by the Word and the Spirit, but if it's incomplete, if it's not worked out in community, right? And I was having a little chuckle with someone a little bit earlier. They're sitting here trying to be a part of an equip, and they get a message that's just something they had to deal with in the moment, but it was really, really trying and testing. And she was just saying, just having to be self-controlled when you really, really feel like you've got to say something strong, but it's not the right way to do it or the right timing or anything else. And community is a blessing in that it's what the Lord uses to bless us in many ways. The gifts that are among us to equip us and just to love one another is absolutely the most incredible blessing. But the transformation that comes from community cannot happen out of community, right? It's very easy to love Jesus on a mountaintop, very easy to love Jesus around a fireplace, out in Africa, listening to the lions roar, right? It becomes a little bit more difficult when your brothers and sisters, and even let's say outside the church, in the church you've got probably sometimes less grace because you expect more of each other, right? You're like, but it's for our own good and for his glory that we as a community meet. And we have to encourage our folk, and that's the first thing. When you invite them into a life group context, you're saying this is important, and in the word, do not forsake the gathering of the believers. And their transformation, them being prepared as a bride for the bridegroom, cannot happen effectively in any measure if they are not planted and rooted in a community, working out their differences. And relationships, I think we all know, go to a deeper level when we actually work through things. It's so easy just to have a relationship or friendship, whatever it might be, surface level, have a little bit of a glitch in the friendship and just move on. Actually, I don't really like that person. They're a little bit like this. Move on and almost just hop from friendships to friendships. You'll never have any depth and any actual character or anything forged in you if you do not have those hard confrontations. But when you do, your relationship has gone to a completely other level. And what I do know is we always want that. In the moment, even though there's frustration, we would always want the post sort of confrontation fruit, if we've worked through it well, to have a relationship restored. That's in the heart of man from God, not before God, but his heart is to restore, right? That's what the Father did by sending his Son, was to restore mankind to himself. That is primary and fundamental to his plan and purpose. And even for us, that is, even though you're having an argument or you're struggling through things, we've got to know that both of you, at the end of a confrontation, if you can still be friends and have restored what you have to a greater degree, that would be first prize for both of you. In your hurt and in your brokenness and in your frustration, all that, it's not. You want to run a confrontation is hard work, and it's painful and it's humbling. That's probably the hardest one, right? That's what stops us from going back to, it's actually too much to deal with. It's actually much easier if I go find another friend or another life group or another place, another relationship, right? So just encouraging our community to be in community is vital in that third thing. And then just the Ephesians 1:22. And he put all things in subjection under his feet and gave him as head over all things to the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills all things in every way. The church is his bride, his body, his temple, his house, among many other descriptions of the body, army in the word. And the reality is, and the truth is, and that's why we have to look at the word, he has not chosen any other organization. He's not chosen any other method, any other vehicle through which his manifest glory will or be manifested. And it's through us. It's through his church. And it's not going to happen on our own, some coals trying to burn brightly out in some distant region, right? And So it's obviously a vital. We're all here. We're all part of communities. We all know that. But it's encouraging guys that come in and visit and think that an Easter or a Christmas or a baptism is the time they need to be there. But everything else is a little bit of hard work, right? Mission. So we've heard from God's word who he says he is, who we are in him. The world gives us answers for everything in the word. We have seen what he's doing. We've read about what he's done. We've read about what he's doing, or experienced what he's doing, and we've read about what he's still going to do, right, through the Spirit. We are working out what we've seen, heard in community, but for what reason? What are we to do with everything that's put inside of us, right? And many scriptures that tell us all about that, and that is to continue to make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Son, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And part of that is the wedding. And I'm talking about that because I believe the Lord did show me when I was at the wedding, which is obviously, he uses every opportunity to show more of himself. But really, just to have that before us, there is a wedding day. He desires that his bride, and will be, we know that it will be, but he desires, and he's longing for a bride of all tribe, every tongue, and every nation. And that's what we're doing. And if it's just in our life groups, if it's just in our churches, that's not the wideness of what he is, what the bride that we are preparing, right? And so there is a going. There is a going outside, and that mission doesn't have to be very far away. The mission is just outside of your, is any stranger is a mission field for you, for us. And what is the whole aim is to bring them to Jesus, the Word, the Spirit, into community and send them on mission, right? Bringing them in, leading, equipping, training, releasing, and that's the whole fruitfulness and the multiplication and the advancing of his kingdom. And I'm just looking at the time here. We don't have much time, do we? A minute. Okay. Anyone got a minute question? 30 seconds, because we've got 30 seconds to answer it. But yeah, I want to leave that picture if you want to ask a question. Biggest challenge leading a group? I would say, I think I tend towards wanting just to, I look at the things that the Lord is possibly not looking at sometimes. So I want to have a big group that's growing. And, well, from the natural, your eyes looking at the natural. And the Lord has, I'll give you a quick example of a night where we had, and it's never happened in the history of leading a life group, and never happened afterwards. That night, nobody arrived but one person. One person arrives, a lady called Elaine, and that night, she sat in the corner of our room. I know exactly where she sat in my mind's eye right now. And she wasn't saved. So the Lord had orchestrated and arranged that this lady would come, that everyone else would be busy, everyone else would have some other agenda for that night. And it gave us a moment to have a serious one-on-one, my husband and I, working through the Word from Genesis to Revelation. She had many questions. She was quite knowledgeable in the Word, but she hadn't come to salvation. And so that, for me, was a real, and it happened a few years ago now, but it was like, Lord, if you bring one person tonight, it's for a reason and for a purpose. And you love that person so much that you would let the others do something else in that evening just so that they could have some time to really hear what they needed to hear and for the Holy Spirit to move and bring life, in that moment. So I think it's the continual part of that, but the continual massaging in of inviting folk that see it as in the business of today's world, to get people to actually attend. So we've got a decent group, but the percentage of people that actually come consistently is quite low. But consistently, hey, where are you? Haven't seen you around. You're okay. It's that the entire time of loving people persistently when they're showing sometimes a lot of neglect of gathering, And you as a life group leader, it's time out of your family, once a week, and you feel like the price when others are like, oh, I might come, might not, that would probably be it. Where I've got to protect my heart and go, you know what, Lord, it's for you, it's not for me. If there's one person, that's the person you want to minister to. If there's 20, wonderful. You'll bring those you want to have here. We'll look after them as best we can and by your spirit, but you know what I mean. So I hope that answers a bit. See? Yeah. That's Ian. Did you have a question though?
Just to add to the whole thing, when you get to people like my age, and there are a lot of them sitting on the chairs in a fellowship, what do you do for them? They don't want to go out at night time because of the danger. So we have formed here what we call the Golden Eagles, the older people, but even young people are joining us. We do it on a Wednesday afternoon. So they don't have to travel at night time. And I want to tell you, from this that we have done, we have baptized a man with no legs. We have baptized, and these are elderly people, we baptized a person that didn't believe in God. We baptized someone who had a major accident and is crippled. And we baptized a young lady. This is because we had a facility. We recognize that the older people need the help. You know, they're closer to God than you are. So we need to look, what do we do for the older people? They don't want to go out at night. They want something. We follow the whole aspect of home group. We have coffee. In actual fact, we have cappuccino. We have soup when it's cold. So we are in a situation where we have 20 people, over 20 people coming on a regular basis on a Wednesday. And we also have a WhatsApp group, which is connected to it. Yes. Okay, so think about it. Go back and please do something for the older people.
It's a really good point, Ian, and we do have groups at different times as well for that very reason. And it's absolutely vital, a really, really valued part of our community and everyone's community. And we've got to be looking at every age group. Thanks, Ian.
When you've been allocated a name by the church administrator of people that you need to invite into a home group, what would you say is a safe amount of times that you invite somebody in, trying to make them feel comfortable and luring them into a home group and not being forceful on them? So what would you say is a safe amount of time that you approach a person to join you?
Firstly, we're a little bit more organic on how we get people into life groups because we believe there's the connection. So like on a Sunday, we actually try with a new visitor to invite, and we encourage all of our life group leaders. You see the visitors, go and invite them. Then you're giving them the first chance to respond to who they actually would like to, possibly even in the small moment of meeting someone. Plus, you're pointing them to all of the life group leaders where they live. So we don't get allocated people in that way. But should you get allocated people in that way, and another option, by the way, with that is we take a picture of their connection card and we put it on the life group leaders group. And we kind of work out, okay, these guys, they are living here. This is a little bit of the dynamics of what I picked up about their family. These guys have got kids. So we try and fit people into something from the start where we think it's going to be a good solution for them, right? And I'm sure the church has done that when they give it to you. They haven't just, okay, you go here, you go here. But I would make a phone call. So if it's just a WhatsApp, people get thousands of messages a day. That might feel to them not what they're impersonal. If they respond, great, and you can take it from there. But give them a phone call, chat to them, and even before you go into a life group, you can have coffee with them. And then you can start to suss, okay, this person's not really interested, and actually I find that and then put it on back to the church in terms of the admin following up. But very important that we don't have holes in our nets, right? So be persistent. It's a loving thing to do, but in a loving way. We so loved having you as part of our time on Sunday. Would love to have you part of our group. Why don't you, and if you don't want to sort of commit to one, why don't you go and visit a few groups? It's a great way to meet people And then you can decide where you want to be. Then they don't feel like, oh, I'm going to sign up for a lifetime membership at this group, and they've met one person in the group they don't get on, or something like that. So create freedom for them to choose where they want to go, irrelevant of where they live, and space, but knowing that you're inviting them and you value them. That's what they want to hear. I've been noticed, I've been valued, I feel like I belong, and I can choose in which space that looks like in the part of this body.